This is the lesson for the Communication Radio Panel, or CRP operation. In this segment, you will learn to use the Md11 communication radio panels for these functions. We will start with a brief look at the location and function of the communication radio panels. The three communication radio panels are on the cockpit center console. CRP1 is on the left side of the console. CRP2 is on the right side. And CRP3 is on the aft left side of the console. Through port A on the radio, CRP1 tunes the VHF1 and HF1 radios. CRP2 and CRP3 can use the VHF1 or HF1 radios, but the CRPs must first go through CRP1. Also through port A on the radio, CRP2 tunes the VHF2 and the HF2 radios. CRP1 and CRP3 can use the VHF2 or HF2 radios, but the CRPs must first go through CRP2. CRP3 does not tune a specific radio directly. If CRP3 must tune a radio, CRP3 must go through CRP1 or CRP2. Look at how CRP3 goes through CRP1 or CRP2. To tune the VHF1 radio with CRP3, the signal must first go through CRP1. The VHF3 radio is directly related to the ACARS management unit. VHF3 and the ACARS management unit together can automatically send reports of vital flight data to the ground-based stations. We will use CRP3 to make a selection of a radio. To tune an aircraft radio, use the 5 radio selection buttons on the lower part of the CRP. Push the VHF1 button. The button comes on to show that the radio is in use. Also, the top line in the active and standby windows show the radio selection. The radio selection buttons lock together so that only one radio is in operation from a given CRP at a time. Use VHF2. As you see, the VHF2 button comes on. The active and standby display windows also show VHF2. Go back to VHF1. You have seen how to make a radio selection. Next, we will change radio frequencies. You can see that the active and standby frequencies are different. The active window shows the current operation frequency for VHF1, but the standby window shows the stored secondary frequency for VHF1 To change the active frequency to the standby frequency, push the transfer button between the two windows. The active and standby frequencies have changed places. VHF1 has tuned to the new active frequency. Push the transfer button again to go back. The active and standby frequencies have changed places, and VHF1 has tuned to the original frequency. Now we will tune the radio to a new frequency. The frequency select knobs change the frequency in the standby window. The inner, large knob controls the 3 digits left of the decimal point. The outer, small knob controls the digits right of the decimal point. Remember, the frequency select knobs change the frequency only in the standby window. To change an active frequency and not change the standby frequency, you must first move the active frequency to the standby window. Your second step is to change the old active frequency, now shown in the standby window. Touch the frequency knob to change the standby frequency. Third, move the new frequency to the active window. The standby and active frequencies have changed places, and VHF1 has tuned to the new active frequency. Remember, to change the active frequency is a 3-step process. You have seen how to move and change radio frequencies with the CRP. Next, we will look at how the 3 CRPs operate together. The active windows on CRPs 2 and 3 show the VHF1 active frequency. When you push the transfer button, the CRP3 active and standby frequencies changed. VHF1 has tuned to the new frequency. On CRP2, only the active frequency changed, not the standby frequency. To make the CRP2 standby frequency current, you must use the frequency knobs. Now move the CRP2 standby frequency to the active window. The CRP2 active and standby frequencies change positions, and CRP3 shows the new active frequency. VHF1 has tuned to the CRP2 active frequency. Know these 3 things about normal CRP operations. You have learned how the CRPs tune the aircraft radios and how the CRPs operate together. Next, we will see how the CRPs and the ACARS management unit operate together. When active, the ACARS management unit can control VHF3. When the ACARS management unit is in control, some of the CRPs' displays and functions change. For example, you would see these displays with an inactive ACARS management unit. All CRPs are set to VHF3, and the active windows show the frequency for VHF3. Now we will show how an active ACARS management unit changes the CRP functions. With an active ACARS management unit, the CRP displays change. All CRPs stay set to VHF3, but now the active windows show ACARS in the radio frequency position. The ACARS management unit controls the frequency and operation of VHF3. The CRPs have no control over VHF3 at this time. Because of the active ACARS management unit, some CRP functions are different. We will look at these three areas. For reference, we will show the display buffers as dashed boxes below each panel. The active display buffers show the VHF3 frequency when the CRP controls the radio. You can control the radio with any CRP, but you must first cancel the ACARS management unit. To cancel ACARS, push the transfer button. The ACARS management unit has given up control of VHF3. VHF3 has tuned to the CRP active display frequency, and ACARS has moved to the standby windows. The CRP2 active display buffer frequency moved to the standby display buffer. But on CRPs 1 and 3, the standby frequencies moved from the standby windows to the standby display buffers. When ACARS shows in the standby window, the CRPs are in the ACARS override mode. The ACARS management unit stays active, but the CRPs control VHF3. Now we will change the CRP active frequency. On CRP2, the standby window display and standby buffer changed positions, but the other CRPs did not change. Adjust the CRP2 standby frequency to 133.100. Good. You have a new standby frequency. Move the CRP2 standby frequency to the active window. All active displays changed to the new active frequency. VHF3 tunes to 133.100. Now do a check on the CRP2 displays. ACARS moved to the standby window, and the old active frequency moved to the standby display buffer. The CRP frequency change is complete. Now we will put the ACARS management unit back in control of the VHF3 radio. ACARS shows in the CRP active windows, and the ACARS management unit now controls VHF3. The CRP active frequency moved to the active display buffer, and the standby display buffer frequencies moved to the standby windows. Because of the active ACARS management unit, you saw how some of the CRP functions change. Think of these things when ACARS is active and a CRP is in use. The communication radio panel presentation is complete. In this segment, you used the Md11 communication radio panels for these functions. First, you used the 5 CRP radio selection buttons. The radio selection buttons lock together so you can use only one radio from a CRP at a time. Second, you use the transfer button and the frequency knob. You will use these steps to change an active frequency. Third, you saw how the 3 CRPs operate together. For each radio, the active display shows the last frequency put in with a given CRP for that radio. Last, you saw that when an active ACARS management unit is in control, some of the CRP's displays and functions change. You can now make a selection. To examine a presentation area, touch that menu item. Or to go to the practice, touch the right arrow.